Hey, everybody, grab your pumpkin latte, grab a graveyard shovel because it's time for the Witches movie Coven. Yay! This on this episode, it's going to be witches, 5 witches talking about witchy movies. This week, we are going to talk about Pumpkinhead, the 1988 movie Pumpkinhead. Yes, indeed. Let me introduce us real quick. We'll save the big intros for the end. My name is Patti Negri. I am one of your hosts. You might know me from The Witching Hour or from Ghost Adventures or from Ghost Finders. Anything paranormal or dead people, I'm probably there. And my beautiful co-hosts are, I'm going to go in a circle, Courtney Buckley, Ghost Bait herself. We've got Richard-Lael Lillard all the way from New Orleans, always finely dressed. We have Jason Mankey in a fabulous shirt today in Northern California, and the one and only Heather Greene, appropriately ready for pumpkin everything. So this week, again, Pumpkinhead, we are getting into fall season. We are getting into Halloween-y type season. So we do want your opinions and thoughts on what you want us to see. We do have one pick for next year. We'll bring that out later. Next week. But we want to know what you want to see for like Halloween movies and fall movies moving into the holidays. Hello, Mary. Hi, everybody. We actually want you to post as much as you can here. We actually read them. We even post some of them, but we want to know your thoughts on this movie. So I guess, did anybody have anything they want to say or want to save for the end? Anything good happening that pre-Pumpkinhead?
No. I'm happy that it's fall season. It's the best time of year. It's the most witchy time of year. I think we're all really excited to be in September and out of August.
We are so happy to be in September. So, okay, on that note, Pumpkinhead, 1988. Is this something from your book, Miss Heather?
This is something from my book and from every lecture I give about witch movies and from every time I talk about witch movies. If you give me a chance to talk about witch movies, I will mention Pumpkinhead. So that's not giving away my wands up and wands down yet, but I'm just making that statement. If you've read my book or if you've heard me lecture on this topic, no doubt you've heard me mention Pumpkinhead. And there's a lot of reasons why, and I could probably give a seminar for a couple hours on the movie. That's how much there is in this movie to talk about, but I'm going to try to space it out and keep it as brief as a Gemini can do in the time I have allotted. But the first thing I want to bring up is something really important when we talk about witch movies in general. Okay, I could talk about how this was made at the beginning of the Satanic Panic and the Christian overlays and all that kind of stuff and the moral tales, but there's something more that people don't recognize about this commonly. We all know that Shakespeare and Macbeth and The Wizard of Oz and that text are some of the most influential literary stories on American witch films. That's obvious. People know these stories. This movie is loosely based on a Hawthorne tale called Feathertop, okay, written in the 1800s. Now, Hawthorne, of course, was a resident of Salem, and most of his stories, his moral tales, were a reaction to the culture there that was obviously came out of the moral panic and the Salem witch trials that kind of lingered in Salem and the area at the time. So a lot of his stories, like Scarlet Letter is one of the most obvious. We were all read in high school. He wrote this story called Feathertop back in the 1800s. And Feathertop was about a witch who wanted to play a joke and she lived in the woods, wanted to get even, play on the townspeople who she felt were morally vacant, okay, that were had no depth to them. They were too involved in how much money they had and how they looked. And so she wanted to get even with them. So she used her magic and created this Pumpkinhead scarecrow and sent him in. And so he called this a moral legend. It's a short story. You can read it online. It's very easy to find. So Hollywood loved Hawthorne's tales and did them all over and over again. And this one in particular, the first ones were done 2 in the silent era, maybe 3 in the silent era. In fact, the first witch that creates a pact in a Hollywood movie is called Puritan Passions, based on this tale. There was a musical in the 50s based on this tale. So you have a lot of them. And here is another version. Here's the horror version of it. It's not exact, but it captures Hawthorne's moral dilemma. It captures the be careful what you wish for. It captures the depth of what Hawthorne was getting for within the horror film. And what's so brilliant about it is that they were able to do that, to capture what Hawthorne was getting at in his original tale, of not only be careful what you wish for with Ed Harley, but also they were able to do that in the beauty of a teen slasher film, a classic teen slasher film. And they combined the two, which was brilliantly done. So I'm going to leave it here and let everybody else talk, because I could go on for another 2 hours.
That is beautiful. I had honestly never saw that until night before last. I just missed it altogether. And okay, I'll speak first. I really liked it. I did really like it. I didn't like the Pumpkinhead monster though. I must say it threw me, because I kept wanting Sigourney Weaver's head to come up like that. Wait, no, that's Alien. That's not Pumpkinhead. That's Alien. She should have some orange or something to him, even whatever. And he just was so not even demonic to me. Just was very, very alien. And I hardly got past that. But I loved all the moral dilemmas. I loved the father's love for his child. I almost couldn't watch the movie when you saw what was coming, and you saw what was coming with those bad kids and the cute little boy and the dog. And it's like, oh my God, the kid or the dog is going to get it, and I can't handle either one of those. The kid or the dog is going to get it, and of course that happened. But it held me to it the whole time, except for the monster.
I think here is where I should. For those who have not seen it, I think here I should tell a little bit of the plot.
Yes, please.
Yes. So, originally called Revenge of the Demon, it was returned back to the original title, Pumpkinhead, based on that same poem that Heather mentioned earlier. So it takes place, or it starts off in 1957 with a bunch of country pumpkins. See what I did there? Mm-hmm. A bunch of country pumpkins, and this guy's banging on the door. He's trying to get in, and this young boy says, "Why won't my father let this guy in?" Well, because you realize what happens if you let someone in, if you interfere with a marked person, then he changes his mark to you, and then goes back to the mark. So everyone ends up by being dead. So they ended up by not allowing him in, and then it cuts to the present. In the modern world, this same little boy is now a man who's lost his wife, and he has a kid, and he has a dog that is the same dog from Gremlins, and he loves this little boy so very much, and he goes out and he chases the dog. The dog is going to get hit by these teenagers who are definitely not 40. Anyway, so the kid runs out. He gets hit with this motorcycle, and of course he dies. And instead of calling the police like any normal human being would, they run and hide in the cabin that was from what was it, Halloween? No, what's this? The slasher movie with the machete and the
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. That's the cabin, by the way. I don't know if you knew that, but that's the cabin from that same movie with the machete. Anyway, so they go and they hide, and the one kid stays behind, and he says, "Oh, it was an accident. Can I help you with anything? Like, maybe I can call the morgue or the police, or I don't know. What do you want me to do with this dead kid?" And then the father looks at him like he's evil. The father then ends up by he pays this other kid some money to find this old witch, this old hag named Haggis. She never had a chance. Her name was Haggis. She was a hag named Haggis. And enough said. So she ends up she says, I can't do it. I don't have the power to bring him back. So she can't bring him back, but she says that she can summon this ancient demon. And he goes into the pumpkin patch. Yes, Jason, there were pumpkins. They go into the pumpkin patch, and he must dig up this shriveled up, dried baby corpse of this demon and bring it back. And so the witch uses the blood from the dead kid and the blood from the father, and then they reanimate this Pumpkinhead demon who is out for blood, and he is of course going to kill all of these people, all of these teenagers. And then in the car ride home, the deceased little boy, he says, "Daddy, why did you do that? I'm really fine with everything that's happening. That's not a gourd thing that you did."
Oh my God.
See what I did there? And then of course
I'm in pain. I'm in physical pain after that one. Just so you know.
So he ends up, of course, they go back to the Michael Myers, Friday the 13th, whatever, cabin, and the demon is out to get them and picks them off one at a time, calling one woman out, one woman who's definitely a teenager, and she's definitely not 40. Yeah, she runs out, she hears the name, and her boyfriend goes out chasing after her, but the demon catches him and tosses him around like a rag doll. And then at the end of it, all of these people are dying, and they realize, okay, I can't do this anymore. We have to kill this demon. So they end up in a church for some whatever reason. Doesn't do any good. And then they try stabbing it with a machete. They try all kinds of things. Nothing ever works. And then they realize the guy that is now the demon is transforming to look like him. He's transforming to look more like the demon. As he's walking through, he catches his arm on a pitchfork because, again, they're country pumpkins. And the demon cries out in pain. And he realizes the only way to make the demon go away is that if he himself is dead. So he shoots himself, but he is not dead. Neither is the demon, though they think that he is. So in his last dying words, he begs the one remaining girl, "Please just kill me." And that's the end roll credits.
Wow.
I know, right? But it's not. It's
I
actually,
felt like I was rewatching it.
but it's really not the end.
I don't know about that, Courtney.
It's really not the end. It's really not the end, though, because it would lead to a wide, successful variety of Pumpkinhead movies. In fact, Pumpkinhead changed his name. He got rid of the head part, and then he had a lustrous career as one of the Spice Girls. Pumpkin Spice. It was the most popular singer.
Wow.
Ow!
Okay.
Yikes.
Okay.
Wow.
Left and
Starbucks
center.
pays a royalty every fall.
Before we go back, before we go on, Robert Hicks had a question. Didn't know that it was based on Hawthorne and all. Do you happen to know the title?
Feathertop.
Feathertop. Okay,
The
thank
name
you.
of it is Feathertop, a moralized legend.
A moral legend?
A moralized legend, I think, is what he called it. Yep.
Okay,
That's Hawthorne.
I have some thoughts that I'd love to share.
Please.
So first, disclaimer, I was very excited when this movie was mentioned, and I was fully on board with watching it because I hadn't seen it yet. But in my brain, that was because I had confused it with Trick or Treat, the one with the actual Pumpkinhead. So I didn't start. We weren't on the greatest foot when we started, me and this movie. So I just watched it today for the very first time ever, and I was already not excited because of the confusion, but also because historically I'm not a huge fan of the 70s or 80s movies unless they're ridiculous ones. But I started the movie, and the father and son dynamic was so wholesome and beautiful, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna love this movie. But I said out loud, if anything happens to either one of them, I swear to God, I'm gonna turn it off. And then the kid died 3 minutes later, and I did not recover the whole time. I thought that the ending was like, it was not satisfying. I don't know what I wanted to happen, the kid to come back to life. I don't know how that would ever happen, but I felt like it was really predictable and unsatisfying, and I just felt depressed at the end, and like I wanted to go on a grippy sock vacation because it did not fulfill me in any way, shape, or form. What I will say, though, historically in horror movies, I hate the monster. I think the monster always ruins it, and I thought the same thing. Patty looked just like an alien, and
That's because it was Stan Winston.
Oh, well, good to know. I'm terrified of aliens to the point of trying to run away out of my house if I think that they're in it, and I can't even watch E.T. some reason this did it for me, and I actually liked it. I don't know if it's just because he was like wet the whole time. Like I didn't understand that either, but it's just a lot. But I did like him. And I would like to point out too, I have a controversial take. I know that it doesn't do great things for like the witch stereotype, but I would like to be Haggis when I grow up. I want to be the evil witch of the woods. Yeah, I want to be the evil witch of the woods that everybody's afraid of, who puts hex on people and wrangles demons. And just everybody leave me alone unless you want me to do some crazy stuff for you, and then, you know, whatever, blood magic and all that, and be afraid of me otherwise. So that's my hot take, guys. I feel like I need a hug after that movie.
Well, we can send you some hugs.
I do love. I didn't know that it was based on a Nathaniel Hawthorne writing, and so that makes me a little more intrigued by it, just slightly. But yeah, that's my hot take.
I did like The Witch too. I love The Witch in the Woods. I love The Witch in the Woods.
Well, I have some things to say about her, but I'll wait until, because we haven't heard from Jason yet. So, and I know he's sitting there waiting.
I thought I had seen this movie when I was younger, because I mean, I watched Friday the 13th, which is contemporary to this. Obviously, all the Freddy Krueger movies, Halloween movies. I assumed that I'd seen this, and in my mind, this movie stars a creature with a large pumpkin head, perhaps a flaming pumpkin. And then I, was sad to see that's not the case at all. And there are really no pumpkins other than the pumpkin patch that Richard-Lael mentioned. However, the witch in the woods is amazing. And all I could think of was, wow, that must be Byron Ballard's grandmother or something like that. Or perhaps it is perfect. One of the witches written about in Vance Randolph's Ozark witchcraft books. There's something like she just kills. Now, this is one of my favorite movie witches of all time. The plot is pretty derivative. I don't like Pumpkinhead at all because he's not a pumpkin, really. But this was a fun movie. It's brisk. It's about 85 minutes long, so it never gets too slogged down. The kids aren't all terrible. There's only one really awful kid who's 40 years old in this. The little blonde kid reminded me of myself at that age. He had that little blonde mane, and that would have been me. I felt bad for him. Like Courtney, don't need as many hugs, but I did feel bad for him. All things considered, not a bad way to spend a night watching a horror movie.
Thank you. Okay, Richard-Lael, we don't have your opinion and thoughts yet.
Thoughts and opinions. Well, I'm glad that it was Stan Winston's only film. I'm not going to talk about the other one that doesn't exist. I know. So Stan Winston was brilliant with makeup. He did The Terminator. He did Aliens. It has his mark, even though he turned all of that over to his team. I thought visually it was really beautiful. I loved the dark scenes, the blues of the cemetery, the oranges and the hues of his skin. I thought it was even the lighting in the cabin where the witch is. It was very orange and very sort of glittery, like flickery, like light. It was beautiful. It was absolutely visually stunning. The witch was my favorite. I felt for her the entire time. I mean, she basically is just out. I wanted to know why. What is her story? Why does she have the power to summon this demon? Why is she there sort of as this guardian as to who summons that energy out of the pumpkin patch? So yeah, I enjoyed it mostly. I mean, would I watch it again? Probably not, but I didn't enjoy it that much.
Okay. Did anybody? I guess we were not there. We're not done yet. To see a sequel, because I saw that somebody said Lance Henriksen was in like 2 or 3 of the sequels.
There's like 13 of.
Oh my god!
There's like none of them are the same. None of them are as good. And this movie didn't even do that well. It was just average. So the fact that they just capitalized on it. I can't remember. I can't remember the number of them. There's
It
a
was-
huge number of them. Never seen another one.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
They were
looking it
also
up.
were all direct to video, or one of them was
Yeah.
even made for TV. So it's
Yep.
not like the traditional, we're going to just keep pumping these into the theaters kind of thing.
No.
And this movie didn't really have a lot of gore in it. So a made for TV kind of makes sense. You know, the creature was creature-like, but there wasn't the buckets of blood that we, saw in Renfield and some other movies.
No.
Which I enjoyed.
Yeah, there's only 4 movies.
Yeah, I love that shirt. My
And it's
first
not-
one.
mysterycontrol.com, because I have an addiction and they just feed it. They're enablers, and it's really a problem.
I mean, I haven't seen your closet, but I've seen your wardrobe every week. You have a lot.
That's what my closet. All that is my closet. This, black sweatpants, and that's it.
Ah.
I think our goal every week is just to see who's going to end up on Courtney's chest the next week.
It's my favorite, so I can hug you. Or on my floor.
We're always
like
close,
Richard-Lael in
Courtney.
his boxes.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I want to go back before we move on to Heather. I thought the little kid's necklace should have had more, because it looked like this magical necklace. It looked like this protection necklace. Again, it all came forth till the end, so you know who was really buried in the end. But I wanted more story with this little necklace that the kid created. Anybody else get that?
I'll tell you what it did do is now I have flashbacks and I feel like crying, because the thought when they showed that at the end with the dirt going on it, it was all I could think about was like how proud he was. Like I have too much empathy to watch this movie. I can't, because like the dirt going over it, and I'm like, oh my god, remember when he was like, oh dad, you don't have to wear it every day, just once in a while, and his dad's like, you're so clever and I'll wear it I'll never take it off, and like that's beautiful. And then he died and I hate it. I'm just so sad.
He died, and then he becomes the actual pumpkin
No.
monster the next time.
Him I don't care about. I care about the kid. The
No,
kid
the
died.
kid does.
Right, the kid died, and then the dad does what the dad does, and the dad dying at the end was so unsatisfactory. I don't know the words for it. I'm speechless for the first time.
We really need a movie about the witch, though.
Yes.
Like Pumpkinhead, Enter the Haggis is what we need. That's the name of that should be the name of the rebooted franchise. Start with her.
I know.
Yeah.
I liked all that she had, like her rats and crows, and that was nice. So, all right. Well, we only have one person left, Miss Heather, the one who's got hours and buckets of information.
Well, I have a deep love for this movie. A lot of reasons why, because of the connection to Hawthorne and how that evolved over time, and this is the first time that the witch not the first time, because Puritan Passions, the witch is connected to Satan. So what's interesting about the witch is phenomenal. First of all, I agree wholeheartedly with this. And remember, when we say, the kid dies and the dad dies and it ends disappointingly, that's the point of a moral tale. It's supposed to be telling us, be careful what you wish for. These guys did the kid died, the dad made a bad choice, so that's the ending is satisfying in the idea of a moral tale. And that's sort of, Hawthorne's story is not a happy ending either, although there is, in one version of Hawthorne's story, one iteration in Puritan Passions, the witch is a woman who was scorned by the rich person in town, who let her child die, and so she comes up with the Pumpkinhead. So there's a lot of iterations of the backstory of this witch. Puritan Passions, which is a silent film you can't see anymore, has the most involves the most backstory for her. So that's what we're talking about. We want to know her story. So what's interesting about Haggis to me is that she, in many ways, is a classic witch that we'd expect. She says she's already sold her soul to Satan. When he says, God damn you, she says,
He already did.
He already did. That's the one sign. She's already sold her soul. Her soul is gone. So we already know that her magic comes from the devil. And this story has a lot of Christian overlay, so that's expected. It's 1980s, et cetera, et cetera. You get the cabin, you get the Crone in the Woods. You get a lot of these very, very classic stuff that we would expect. But at the same time, what's interesting to me about Haggis is that she harkens back to the witches of the silent era, because prior to 1930 or so, most of the witches that were represented, most of the crones specifically, especially crones in the woods that lived alone, were amoral. They just were magic for money type dudes. You know, you would say, I gotta go. They were accepted. People knew they were there. If you needed magic, you went and paid them. They didn't care whether you were going to be evil with it or if you were going to be good with it. And they would warn you. They would say, hey, you can have this. You sure? You want this? Are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? And that's a lot of these witches back in the silent era were not evil. And people always ask me, oh yeah, you know, were there any good witches prior to Glinda? Yeah, you know, the witches earlier weren't bad. They just were like magic for money. They were business women that would, you know, so Haggis really is that. Haggis is an old crone in the woods who the townspeople know existed. And if you needed something, you went to her, and she warned him. She said, are you sure you want to do this? And he's like, yes. So it becomes, so what happens with the witch in these kind of movies, and a lot of these movies, they become the moral compass for the hero. And then you watch a lot of the silent era witch movies. They're moral compasses. They don't have a lot of screen time, but they really they set the gauge for ethics for our main characters, and that's what she's doing. So it harkens back to this classic witch that Hollywood loved to portray, to say she's not evil, she's not good, she's gonna show us whether the main character is good or bad. And in this case, well, I don't know, is he good or bad? Ed Harley. I love how she says that. It's in my head. Ed Harley. Ed Harley. So I think that's fascinating about her. She is fantastic.
I'm so glad you said his name, because for the longest time I thought his name was Ed Hardy, and I was embarrassed to say that. But now I'm glad that it's Ed Harley. That makes
Ed Harley. Yes.
I think there could have been a bigger arc in his turn, though.
Yeah.
I mean, just acting wise, it kind of went like, oh, right, they shouldn't have done this. I think maybe more story than they needed or something. But
I think you're right. But I also think that because he was supposed to be seeing through the eyes of the monster, that maybe the human in him went, oh, this is somebody's person. This is somebody's kid. This is someone's 40-year-old, 18-year-old.
Habitual drunk driver.
Right.
I mean, I really didn't think the script was very well developed. I mean, it moves really fast from scene to scene. You don't get a whole lot of characterization out of most of the players in the film, other than Ed Harley, I thought, really. And the one bad guy, the one bad teen who's 40 years old, you know, but I also appreciate brevity. It's not meant to be some sort of really deep film where you want a 2.5-hour character study and, you know, where you go through all of their motivations and things for doing what they're doing.
But meanwhile, the 40-year-old kid that is making fun of the little blonde boy, making fun of his, quote, Coke bottle glasses, but face it, on that budget, it's like a 7-Up bottle glasses.
Well, we can also talk about this being a classic teenage slasher film, which exactly is what, you know, you're speaking to, Jason. There isn't a lot of character development. Slasher films, all they are is a retribution for teenage misbehavior and, you know, promiscuity and drinking and whatever. That's what teenage slasher films, starting with the classic Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween and Freddy Krueger's movie, the Freddy Krueger movies and the Jason movie, you know, all of them. There's just a string of them through the 70s and 80s. And this really uses that. This movie uses that motif, which does not have a lot of depth. It's pretty much lots of teens doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and then they're stalked because of it, or for some reason by some kind of monster, and they're, you know, killed one by one, as Richard-Lael noted, the 40-year-olds, 18-year-olds, etc. Yeah. So you have that, but then this movie to me is better than that, because it does have that overlay of the Hawthorne depth. It does have the Ed Harley stuff. It does have that witch in there. There's a moral and ethical nuance to this that doesn't exist overtly in those other films. And so, I'm a big fan of Halloween and, horror movies. So I think this movie shows what a horror movie can be and how horror can really, what's the word I'm looking for? Can really need and play with our social anxieties, our cultural anxieties. I think it really does it pretty nicely. Even bad horror can do that. But that's what horror is, it examines and shows us our anxieties.
I have to say too, I always say that, a good movie makes you feel something. And in this case, it was not what I wanted to feel, but like desperate and alone and like horribly depressed are all feelings. That is true. So I can't even be mad at it because it did the thing.
Yeah, I must say that I mean the acting was, slasher film acting of whoever, but the girlfriend of the bad 40-year-old, 18-year-old, the one really bad guy, she really tried to show her emotional pull back and forth, standing by the boyfriend. I was going, oh no, she's acting right now. She's trying really hard. You shouldn't have to say that, but she tried to get a little bit of moral dilemma in there, but they gave him way too much power. If we are even just looking at team with, who made him the grand poobah that they all fell for, that these other kids who did seem to have some moral compass.
Because he's been in the 9th grade for 20 years. That's why.
Because that's the 40-year-old older brother. Like he had.
Great.
I have one quote because I was too depressed to write down more than one.
Holly.
It was when they were like trapped in the cabin and they went out with the guns or whatever, and the girl says, God is the only thing that can stop what's out there, Kim. And Kim is like rooting in the drawers, and I'm like, yes. And then she pulls out the knife and she's like, just in case God doesn't show. And I was like, nice, just in case God doesn't show, I have a knife.
I think I quoted that in my book too. I think that is in my book.
Let me check.
Courtney, you are a walking billboard for mischief and
for everything.
I love you guys, and I support everything. Patti, I have a collection of Jason's books. I know you can't see it, but your book is back there too.
Yay!
I have a stack of Jason's as well. And this one, I just have to. When Heather's not here, I have to read from it and pretend to be Heather. That's my acting career. That's what my acting degree.
We could hardly tell the difference.
Right.
Hardly tell the difference. Yeah.
I will say one of the things about this movie that really struck me is it's kind of different from a lot of the 80s slasher films in that there is no nudity. At least I don't remember there being any nudity.
There's no nudity.
That's a big deal. This movie almost looks like something that could have just been shown on TV. And as I said before, there's not a lot of gore. A lot of Halloween and Friday the 13th is about the gore. And it's not here in abundance. It's there, but it's not as gratuitous as it is in some of the movies of this era.
Look what I found.
There she is.
It's
of
our
course,
girl.
I had to get a photo of her in the book. There she is, Haggis.
It's beautiful.
Sorry, guys, I'm busy.
And that's one of the reasons, that always makes or breaks a movie for me, as you guys know from my rant about Renfield, is if the nudity, even the nudity, but if the gore overtakes the story and becomes the neon lights going gore, 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 and you forget and you have to just turn away, that to me can destroy a movie or can make or break a movie. And for Renfield, that was very much the case for me. This one, so I enjoy it when you can be horrific and not have an extreme too much gore. So I'm okay with that. But yes, that was the purpose of some of those other ones. What Freddy, the Friday the 13th movie specifically, I think, not so much Halloween.
But you know what was instead of gore for me is the sound of those motorcycles. That was what to kill me, because they were so loud and so horrible and destroying the land. That to me took the place of the gore, and it was just like the city people coming in to destroy our little country pumpkin home.
You know what was gory to me? The amount of saliva in Pumpkinhead's mouth. And like the slurping. Like
pumpkins are well known for the amount of saliva.
Yeah,
in
they
their
have
gore.
a lot of.
Alien.
Fun fact about me, I don't like pumpkin anything. I like aesthetically, I like a pumpkin. I like to go to the pumpkin patch, pick a pumpkin, but I don't like pumpkin spice. I don't like anything pumpkin flavored because the inside of the pumpkin makes me vomit. Literally cannot carve a pumpkin. I buy a 25-pound pumpkin every year and I put it on my porch, and then it rots because I can't carve it because it's disgusting on the inside. So that's all I could think about was rotting pumpkins. And he's like,
sometimes I don't know why we're friends. Like, this just hurts me on a deep emotional level as a lover of pumpkin spice everything.
Listen, it was the bond we share over Sword in the Stone.
It's true.
That's why we're
friends.
I do have to
85th greatest film.
I'm just curious, Jason, being a lover of pumpkin spice everything, were you, I know you have cats, did you enjoy the pumpkin spice litter that Tidy Cat put out a couple of years ago?
If I had known it existed, I would have tried it, but we use a different brand, and it's not good to change that on your old cats.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if you were so married to the pumpkin spice that you went for the pumpkin spice litter.
We do have pumpkin spice coffee at the house, though, and pumpkin waffles. Yes, I am one of those people whose personality can be based around fall and the winter holidays.
I'm sorry, I cannot get past pumpkin spice litter. Really? Really?
Yeah, I saw it a few years ago. I've never seen it since, so I'm assuming that it was an epic fail. I don't know, so I have not.
Or maybe they
surprise
so that it sold out so quickly. It sells out every year.
I took a picture of it. I may still have it somewhere, but it did exist. I have not seen it since. I did not try it, but I was just curious if Jason had sampled the pumpkin spice cat litter.
I don't think that would be for the cats. That would be for the people. But you what cat poop smelling pumpkin?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
I'm sure that ended up at Big Lots or the dollar store. I'm just saying, like the Harry Potter vibrating broom.
I think that's at the adult toy emporium as well.
I know, right after it went to Big Lots.
Things that just don't work. Okay.
Things that don't work. So I don't know. We're getting some nice comments from everybody. No one's really saying what they liked it or didn't like it about it. Is there anything else we want to discuss before we want to get right into judging?
Well, yeah, I think let's talk about whether it was a success or not, because we talk about, the Barbie movie is now raking in over $1 billion, right? So that's a successful movie. This movie cost $3 million to make, and they made back $4 million, $4,138,000 or something like that. So was it successful? Not by the box office standards, not in 1988. But since in the last 35 or 40 years, it's become a cult classic. So now everyone knows Pumpkinhead, unless you think that it was that other movie that clearly it was not.
Guilty.
Yeah, and you know what? You can say the same thing for a lot of movies that become. You can say the same thing for Wizard of Oz. You can say the same thing for Hocus Pocus. These movies were not successful initially, and it was replays, it was movie, it was TV, it was streaming now that made them cult classics. Even The Craft. It takes something. Back in the day, the movie only aired in the theaters. Then in second run theaters, and then it was gone. Then it was TV, and then video, and then now streaming. So you can't count it just in box office anymore. And I would say, yeah, it's been success. If the people made money and they made 13 films after, or however many, too many there were. How many? Yeah, there was only 3 after.
There were only 4 movies in the entire franchise. I looked it up. So which one? I think 3.
One of the slasher films had like 13.
Yeah.
Like insane. I don't know which
the Friday
one it
the
was.
13th had a lot of.
Maybe it was that one. Yeah. Anyway, so there was 3 too many. Only the first one needed to be made, but in my opinion, but if they made money and they will, it depends on where are we talking artistically from a film critic standpoint? Or are we talking about money and they're raking it to the bank and they're happy with it? How do we judge success?
And Lance Henriksen, who plays Ed, is really good in this movie. For basically one of the leads, he's terrific. He's like a real actor who had a really great career, and that's not an anomaly in horror movies. I mean, Johnny Depp was in the first Friday the 13th, or not. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street. But but they were good actors in this movie, and it doesn't look cheesy or terrible, other than how we feel perhaps about Pumpkinhead himself. But
unless you see in the full version, when Pumpkinhead enters the church, he's actually wearing trainers. That's why he's so quiet, because he sneaks in. But I'm serious. The actor is wearing Nike trainers.
That's clever. That's good for Pumpkinhead. That's good killing right there. You want to sneak up on your prey, right? You don't want anybody to hear those footfalls.
You don't want high heels.
I know you don't want high heels. You want Nike, but I didn't like the monster's legs. None of it was demon-like or monster-like or Satan-like. It was all alien.
See, I think that's where they tried to make it more demon-like, and they didn't succeed very well, because those feet, the way like the knees went backwards, kind of, even though there were claws at the bottom, except for when he was wearing sneakers, it it was very reminiscent of like the cloven hooves, except with claws. And then his tail at the end, when he was laying on the ground, he had like the long tail with like that token like forked end on it. I don't know. I think they tried, and it didn't. And there was, you know what? He couldn't keep the actual demon makeup on because his mouth was so wet. So it just slid off. And then it was an alien.
I did not mind the monster at all. It's so funny. That is like the least interesting part of the whole thing. I'm like, this movie, when I think about this movie, when I watch it over, all I focus on is the witch and the morality tale and the slasher part of it. And the monster is like, it's just another monster in it. But I don't even think about it.
I honestly didn't mind the monster. I feel like because the monster was on screen so much, like I like when they don't show anything, they leave it up to your imagination. That's scarier. And then always, with very few exceptions, they ruin it at the end, because when they show the monster, it's never as bad as you think it is. But Pumpkinhead got a lot of screen time, and I do like that he like had facial expressions. He was acting with his eyeballs, and while also trying to contain himself, but he was acting like with his eyes too. And so I did appreciate that they let him like be a character more than just like the thing in the darkness that we didn't know what it was and was scary, but like they gave him his own part. So I did actually like him.
That is true. I honestly didn't think about that until just now when you said that, but you saw his expressions changing, like I should do this and I should do that. So kudos to that, even though it was from Alien.
When I was watching it, I agree with you, Courtney. I thought it would have been much better if I had not seen Pumpkinhead for a lot of the film. One of the great things about the original Halloween, he wasn't named really Michael Myers in the original Halloween. He's called The Shape. And a lot of the terror is, that he's right around the corner, but you don't see him. And if you're going to have a character who's a murderer on screen all the time, they really need a great personality, which was what Freddy Krueger was, because Robert Englund played that character so well. And Pumpkinhead feels just like, to me, just sort of like a giant puppet. And it would almost have been better to kind of keep him back a little bit longer in the film and then kind of surprise people. He has a lot of screen time for a complicated special effect in 1987, 88.
It was so 80s, though. I mean, I was here in 1988, and the clothing, the kids, the hair, that was fun.
And it's a movie that you're going to find in 1988. I mean, this was a satanic panic era. This is when you're going to see heavy conservative Christian overlay, and that was definitely, that sensibility ran through this film, definitely. And that's not surprising, of course. This was right at the beginning of when witch films became popular. Witches of Eastwick was 87. You start to see the ramp up. Witches, maybe it's Witches that has 13 films. The Witches movies, that horror series, which we could review here definitely this fall if we want. The first one that started at this time. So you really see this ramp up of witchcraft, horror films, witchcraft, occult films linked to demonology, whereas that had gone away for a while. So you're seeing that paired now with the popularity of the slasher film, which was, I mean, I was, a kid in the 80s, and I knew tons of, including my own brother, who would spend lots of late evenings watching horror slasher films, 1, 2 in the morning. That was a big thing for some of the guy friends that I had back then. It was very popular. And that was, it was an 80s thing. It was an 80s thing. 2:00 in the morning, I'm watching Halloween number 17. That was a thing. Not me, but that was other people. But my brother was big into it. And so this really is very 80s. It's very 80s in its sensibility. It's very 80s in its the way it portrays witches, even though it's unique, as I pointed out. And it's very 80s in the teen slashers aspect of it. So, it fits very nicely.
Heather,
it's unfortunate it wasn't popular. Yeah, Jason.
Could you answer Charles' question? Did you see that?
No, I
think
didn't.
You're probably the best. You're right there. You're probably the best person to answer that.
Okay, so with the old crone in the woods archetype being very central European, is there anything interesting to explore in how she is translated to American backwoods in films like this one? So so the old crone is very, very. It's an old archetype, like you said, that's come from a lot from fairy tales. It's some of the literary I was talking about earlier about literary sources. Most of these old crones have come out of the literary fairy tales, the Baba Yaga, like you said, Eastern European stuff. Hollywood just picked that up and developed it. And what happens is you see a lot of these old crones in movies that involve Appalachia. So like this one, for example, another one more recent, 2020, The Spell. You have another version of it that's hoodoo. So it's a little different in its magic, but again, the old woman in the woods. Another one would be, if anyone's a Twilight Zone fan, this Haggis, which is very reminiscent of Jezebel, which is a episode of Twilight Zone, where you have the old woman in the woods. These are always backwoods, like you said, Appalachia, or someone mentioned earlier Vance Randolph.
Yeah.
You have, again, that's the Ozark mountain magic. You have these grannies, these old women who are in the woods practicing folk magic. And so that's the translation, the American translation of her. And you see that throughout Hollywood's films, particularly in the silent era.
Beautiful. All right. It must be time to vote.
Oh, before we vote, I have like a Jason trailer that I wrote for this movie.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let me go. Let me do the deep announcer voice. Step into the world of Pumpkinhead. Picture a murderous demon with the head of a flaming pumpkin coming to kill you and all of your friends. Wait, that's not in there at all? Pumpkinhead doesn't have a pumpkin for a head? Who writes this stuff? So instead, imagine a cross between the movie Deliverance and Friday the 13th, where the killer is a demon that looks like the Predator. Find yourself amazed that the hill folk believe that an alien-looking thing should have the name Pumpkinhead. But hey, at least there's a witch, and she's pretty cool and pretty spooky. Get lost in an underappreciated 1980s gem that is somehow way better than it has any right to be. Just don't expect a whole lot of pumpkins in this film.
Wow.
Bravo.
Okay,
Bravo.
that is a weekly segment. I'm sorry. From here on,
now I got to do work.
that is a weekly segment. You have to do that. That is beautiful. Okay.
Can I just answer, Colin? There actually are supermodel witches in some of the films. I would definitely, if you want to message me on one of my socials, I can give you some examples, and pick up my book, because you'll be able to see the string. And I talk about all of that stuff. What I call her the Vamp Witch, and you will find her. Anyway, go ahead, Patty. I'm sorry.
No. That is good. Oh, so supermodel witches. Well,
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock.
I mean, hello.
Yeah. Courtney.
Right here.
Courtney is a supermodel witch. Yeah.
I
Jason.
model for Extreme Control.
I mean,
Every time I'm
Richard-Lael.
on it.
Richard-Lael's our supermodel.
He is the supermodel.
That's why
I'm a
Richard-Lael
floor
has a
model. Are
pillow.
you kidding?
All right. On that note, we want everybody to vote. We want you guys in the chat room to vote. Wands up, wands down. 1988 Pumpkinhead.
I'm going to vote with pumpkin spice. I was
Oh,
going to light it. God.
Oh, here.
Up. Medium. Up. Up. It's too high. It's too high, Richard-Lael. Bring your pumpkin down. Up. It's
One's
up. One's up on all four. Must have a look at the. All right. So Pumpkinhead, check it out if you haven't. We only have one midway, and it's because she didn't like the kid to die. That is Miss Courtney.
It wasn't just the kid. It was the whole premise of that.
That was my favorite part.
I'm not
He
surprised.
was so cute. He was looking like a baby John Denver.
It was they loved each other so much.
I love
I
John.
did
because
expect
I'm
that little kid to
secret-
start singing Country Roads.
I know
Listen,
you
aw.
Just
did.
because I'm a closeted romantic, not just love romantic, but like closeted lover of love of all kinds. And I will die under oath if anyone makes me repeat that. Lie under oath, not die under oath. I'll lie under oath, or
Courtney,
I'll die under oath. See?
my headphones just went out. What did you just say?
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. I'm not going to repeat it.
I heard it.
But that part, it hurts my blackened, shriveled up soul. So that's why I can't give it any higher than this. It's up here because Pumpkinhead was a character and Nathaniel Hawthorne. Otherwise,
So that's a little more than halfway. That's like 2/3, 3/4.
I'm at like 4 o'clock.
Okay, 4 o'clock.
Or
All right.
3 o'clock.
That looks like 2 o'clock to me, but
Yeah.
Okay, 2:45. All right.
All right. And next week we are moving into fall, so we are going to do Sleepy Hollow next week.
Woo.
So everybody, Sleepy Hollow, watch it. Do we know where we can watch it yet or anything? We know we usually check out that we can actually
I
see.
think you can watch it on YouTube. I think it's available. I mean I haven't looked, but I
It's
think
the 1999 one with Johnny Depp.
yes.
Yep.
We're not watching
It
the
is-
Disney. We're not watching the Disney one.
It is on.
I
Oh.
love the Disney one when I was
Oh, it's
a
on
kid.
Max if you have a subscription to Max.
Okay.
And you can
producer-
rent it on Amazon Prime.
Our producer Rob says Blockbuster Video. Go to your local
God.
Blockbuster Video. Oh, all those poor
Yeah.
Blockbusters.
1988 all over again.
So yes, Sleepy Hollow, the latest one with Johnny Depp, that is the one we are going to watch. So we have our homework for us. So now we have a few more minutes. Everybody say what you're doing, where you're going to be, where people can find you, what you have going out. Let's start with Courtney like we did before.
So I, like Jason, am a lover of fall, and I had one morning this week where I woke up and it smelled like fall and the air was crisp and I was very excited. And then come the end of this week, I'm leaving work. I work at a school. I'm leaving work today and find out that the next 2 days are canceled. School is canceled for the next 2 days because of excessive heat. So I would like to go back in time to that day and relive that fall morning over and over again, or just skip over this part entirely. So I will be hiding in my house in front of a fan and not doing anything for the next couple of days. That's it. That's all I got going.
They really cancel school from heat?
It's not something that happens a lot, but our schools are old and don't have air conditioning. So, and like the classroom that I work in doesn't have windows that open because we're in the basement. So we have like skylight windows, which basically bake us like it's a greenhouse. And so we can't breathe.
Okay.
But
Courtney,
Yeah.
like they call like snow days. Do they call these Sundays? What do they call these?
Right, yeah, because we're all melting.
Mm-hmm.
I like
Wow.
that Sunday. All right, Richard-Lael.
Well, I will be in Ohio the end of October for a couple of days, but I want to say I got to go to Atlanta and see my favorite Atlantean. I got to meet Miss Heather Greene, and that was so exciting. Our little Black Phillips got to meet, and that was lovely. So if you didn't get to see me in Atlanta, well, too bad for you. You can actually see my friend. You can see my friend Heather Greene in Atlanta when you are there.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Speaking of Heather.
Ditto. And I had a great time seeing Richard-Lael in Atlanta. That was a wonderful time. And our Black Phillips did get to say hello to each other, which is so nice. So now I just have a check mark on my thing. Now I just need to visit Patti and Courtney. And I've got everyone covered. Black Phillip is looking forward to that. So it was a super fun time. Thank you, Richard-Lael, for coming into Atlanta and seeing me. And I am pretty much bound to the Atlanta area in my offices working on books for the fall. We have a really great catalog. It's one of our biggest, so I have a lot of stuff going on with trying to work on, not trying, I'm actually working on editing a lot of books. And I'll be in Minneapolis at the end of October. I am also a lover of fall, and I am just getting ready, pulling out all my Halloween and all my fall decorations came out today. Some for the office, which I put out for Pumpkinhead, and then some for the house, because I don't care what the temperature is, 92 degrees outside. I'm putting them out anyway because it's fall. It's fall, baby. Let's do it.
Fall. Thank you very much. All right, Jason.
I'm going to disappoint a lot of witches in the audience, but I drafted my 4th fantasy football team today because it's fall, and I'm one of those people who really loves football, and I'm really sorry for that. I will be outside of Memphis at the Festival of Souls retreat October 12th through the 15th, and then in Las Vegas for Las Vegas Pagan Pride on Saturday, November 11th, which I'm really excited about. So that's where I will be. Other than that, of course, I'm in Silicon Valley, where it is also warm, but not as warm as those other places. Thank you, gods who look after me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. I'm going to be next week in Wisconsin, Baraboo, Wisconsin, doing a whole haunted, it's called the Baraboo Inn. It's a haunted saloon. We're doing a ghost hunt, a seance. I'm doing a workshop. And then the week after that, I'm going to be in Albuquerque. And the week after that, I'm going to be in Massachusetts at Massachusetts Paracon. Maybe I could see Courtney again.
Oh, maybe. I'll be showing up there. I have to get a ticket. And then I can bust the door down.
Maybe you could be my +1.
I'll be your +1.
My +1.
Thank you.
Be my +1.
I accept.
And then October gets crazy. I have Orange County Paracon. I have something with PEX. I don't know. The Vampire Ball, of course, which I'm supposed to convince you and twist your arm strongly, Richard-Lael, that you were going to be at the Vampire Ball in your own city.
Well, I can't because I already made arrangements for Ohio, so I can't back out. But next year I will be. Next year
you will be. And I must say, everybody getting together with everybody. I love getting together with Courtney. Whenever we just did. I don't even know where we were.
We were at Michigan Paracon. It was a last minute decision for me to fly out there. And me and Patti got to spend so much quality time together. Like we sat not this past one, but the year before, we sat at the same table and still spent time, but it was much different this year. We really just like spent time with each other, paying attention to each other. It was really nice.
The best. But I do have a confession to make. I borrowed her Black Phillip and pretended it was my Black Phillip. I put her Black Phillip by my power panties and on my table. My Black Phillip has been beating me up at 3 a.m. every single day since then, going, he didn't have the crooked eyes. He wasn't the wrong. But I appreciated having her Black Phillip because I'm a bad mom.
Oh.
Misses you. And the power panties.
Yes, and the power panties. Yes, and she's got everything. You, Courtney, we have to bring you everywhere, all the time, everywhere, all the time.
She's like Barbie. She has everything.
And yes, she's got the power panties. She's got the Richard-Lael pillow, all of available at mysterycontrol.com. You can get discounts on everything. Go to the discount magic. Go to the discount Patti. Get percentages off. So you too can look like Courtney and all of us on the inside. So other than that, we are going to watch Sleepy Hollow next week. Other than that, we have one more thing to do. We're ending on time, not early, not late. So witches, and join us, everybody. Richard should see the Bel Air house. Okay, Richard, you should see the Bel Air house. 1, 2, 3. Yeah!